everyone, and welcome to Writing Easy, the podcast that takes the act of writing, which can be not easy, and tries to make it a little bit more easy. I'm one of your hosts, Mary Mascari.
And I'm your other host, Melissa Long.
So today we are going to talk about publishing options, which doesn't sound like necessarily something that would be, kind of in the milieu of our podcast. We kind of talk about, encouraging you and calming you down and not so much the nuts and bolts. But I'll tell you for sure, this stuff gives me serious anxiety. I gotta tell you, I have so many books that I have finished that I just don't submit anywhere. I finished a book, I'm like, oh, okay. And then just started another one because it's much easier to write a book than to sell it.
Yep.
So I'm really excited about this topic because I think it will be a great therapy session for me, and that's really the important part.
I think I am, this is so the opposite of who I am, because like when I finished, I was like, boom, everybody look at my book. Here, take my book, sell my book. It's a masterpiece, right? Like I was just so like throwing my work out there, maybe even too early. And so it shocks me when I hear that people have like published or written multiple books, completed multiple books, and not pursued any kind of publication, or they get really like intimidated by it. And then I was like, oh, this is a trend. This is something that a lot of writers struggle with. And so I think we can unpack that, and we can also demystify some of the questions and the process of publication, because it can feel really intimidating, and it is
really intimidating. It doesn't just feel intimidating. It is intimidating.
It doesn't have to be. It does not have to be.
I hope so. Oh my God. Yeah, so I think the first thing everyone tries is the traditional trad pub, where you need to write a query, you query agents, the agents reject you, and then you give up. That's basically the process as I know it. That's kind of how I've been doing it. And then you go write something else, right? Am I missing something here?
Yeah, no, that is the right process. I think it's intimidating because there are gatekeepers, right? And there is a ton of rejection. So people just get caught up in I get 1 or 2 rejections. I'm a horrible writer. This is never going to work for me. And it's uncomfortable to get a rejection or to get ghosted and not hear anything at all for months at a time. And you just think, why am I bothering? And go back to writing, because that's a safe space.
Oh, absolutely. That's exactly what happens. You get that, you have to like get all the right things, because they don't ask for the same kind of thing every time. Okay, you have your query, and then some agents want no pages. Some want 10 pages. Some want your first chapter. Some want 5 pages. Some want 20 pages. And you have to get that right. And then some people want you to not query someone else in the agency if they've already queried them. And then some people want you to use this as a line, and then sometimes you have to look at their wish list, and they're so specific, and you're like, I don't know, is this? And then finally you're like, they don't want it. They're not interested. Nobody cares. And it's difficult for me to remember that these people got into this business because they love books and they love authors. Because it seems to me they don't and just all these flashbacks, right, of Mean Girls, and it's terrible.
They love authors. They're like, everybody's searching for that diamond in the rough. And you have to remember, like, I especially have to do this when I moved out to LA and started talking with film and television producers. It's the same thing. And you think rejection is high in the publishing industry. There's a whole nother level in film and television. But the thing is that the no isn't about the quality of your work. And it's not, about validating your skills as a writer. The no is like, we have another author that writes similar content, and we can't sell 2 books that are similar in nature. Or we only have 20 slots, so I've got to find the book that meets this criteria, right? And so it's hard to take that personal out of and think of this as a business, but it is a business. And that's what I tell a lot of people. It's like, you have to stop thinking about this as the passion. This is not the passion side of this. This is the business side of it, especially if you're trying to do traditional publishing. And you have to recognize that the no isn't about you. And when you start to realize that, it's easier to continually submit and get those rejections, because it only takes one yes.
That's a good point. It's more just, it's not about getting acceptance or anything like that. It's just like matching. You're just trying to match up.
Yeah.
You're like, is this the right one? No. Is this the right one? No. Is this the right one? No. You don't need to lament over that not being the right one, or the reason it's the wrong one, or it has something to do with quality or anything like that. It's just like, nope, this isn't a match. This isn't a match, which is still so hard to do. It's still upsetting, but I'm to the point where I want to hire someone else to do it for me.
Yeah, we call those agents, right?
Well, yeah, but then they won't. Oh, yeah.
So you want an agent?
Yeah, I sure would. I need an agent for my agent. I need an agent.
I feel like, though, we should talk about like what traditional publishing is, like who the traditional publishers are, and the difference, right? So you said that everybody often starts there. That's the first place that they go. And that's because traditional publishers are sort of there's sort of 5 or 6 big publishers that own almost like 80 or 90% of the books that are produced. So when we're talking about fiction, there's not a ton of publishers, but there's a ton of imprints, which are housed under a larger publisher, and they focus on usually a specific genre, right? So there's an imprint for science fiction, and there's like Avon Romance, and there's like all of these little imprints that do a similar type of book or story. And, it can be very overwhelming to look at all the imprints and be like, oh, well, they only take agent manuscripts, and these ones will do open submissions, and getting into that nitty gritty is overwhelming. And that's why you want an agent, because the agent knows who's buying what and when, what the right price points are, and they get you through that door. So like when, Mary's talking about the query process, like a lot of times that's querying and pitching agents who will then represent your work.
And that's the reason people tend to do that first, because that's kind of what's most familiar. Like, that's what you go to the bookstore, those books are most likely traditionally published books. Now, the thing is people don't go to bookstores anymore, unfortunately. It's a different world.
Right?
It's not the same way. So so let's say I really do kind of decide, like, no, this whole thing is not what I want to. I don't want to play that game. I don't want to. I don't. Not because I'm afraid to query, right? Because that's not a valid reason, but maybe because of other reasons. Might I try something else? And what?
Yes. There are other options, right? And that's where we get into self-publishing and indie publishing. I personally, and even that can be intimidating. I think that anybody can self-publish. It's easy. Like, the platforms are there. If you can post to social media, you can self-publish a book. It's not that hard. Indie publishing is a whole different thing, because if you have one book and you're just like, I wanted to publish this book and have a hard copy or a printed copy in my house before I die and check it off my bucket list, that's easy. But if you want to be making a part-time or full-time career and money off of your books and have a fan base or go to conferences, like, that's indie publishing, and it's still a business. So like, you still have to start thinking of it as a business, but it's not impossible to do.
So if there is one thing that scares me more than the query process, it is indie publishing. Because I imagine that I will do all this work, spend all this money to get my book published, and then ta-da, and crickets. And then there's something I'm supposed to be doing, and I don't know what it is. So that's my other fear of, how do I do that part then, if that's better? And, sometimes I look at it and I think it might be better, because there are advantages, right? You get more of the profit. You have a ton more control over everything. You have control over everything because it's all you. And so that seems like you don't have to worry about gatekeepers, because there isn't none. But then you got to sell the damn thing, and that's also scary.
Yeah, there's the promotion piece, which was the thing that I did not like. I really hated. It's hard for a lot of writers, including myself, to promote ourselves, to say like, hey, this is good and you should read it. When people ask me about my books, I'm like, ooh, why would you want to read those? I have you don't want to read my books. Like, I am the worst salesman in the world, which makes it difficult for me to be indie published.
I don't even know who would ask me. No one's going to ask me about my books. Like, what, do I have to write a t-shirt that says "Ask me about my books"? I mean, I don't even know how to get that started.
No, people will ask you. Like, as soon as you say, "Oh, I write," like, then the people go, "Oh, what do you write? Where can I get your books? What are your books about?" Like, people, especially in your network, there are tons of people who would love to know and buy your books and hear you talk about them. If you're on social media and you mention it, like people ask me all the time and I'm like, stop, don't. Like, I don't want to talk about my books.
That's the wrong answer. Okay. Yeah, that's the thing that scares me, is just like having a garage full of these books and being like, okay, well now what? And then like you do you send them out to people? Like, or do you work through a distributor or
So there are a lot of, I think there's a lot of like what I call cottage industry, like organizations or companies that have been designed to prop up the indie book selling marketplace, right? So there's editors, there's cover designers, like people who just do cover designs for indie books, right? There's like Draft Digital, which is a wonderful book that helps, or company that helps you distribute your books. And the great thing about that is like you can upload your manuscript in the right format and it will then connect it to the Apple Store. It'll connect it to, well, it used to do Barnes and Noble. Like it will connect it to all of those other outlets. So you don't have to have 10 accounts for every single distributor. And it also has like a connection to Overdrive now. So you can get your books in the library. So there's a lot of different things, organizations and companies that are making the process easier than it was 5 or 10 years ago when it was first starting. And you really did have to hustle and go to people and say, put my book in your store, put my book in your library. Now that's, it's been a little bit more streamlined and there's a lot of tools and groups where you can get advice and promote together and find book bloggers. It's a whole thing.
All right, so that's a little bit better. That's a little less scary. And now this is both print books and ebooks, right? It's not just ebooks.
Yeah.
Because ebooks are a little easier, right, to self-publish, or is that a false statement?
I think they're both easy, actually.
Okay.
They're both,
I guess, successfully easy. Self-published. Yeah.
And I would say like the thing that keeps people from doing print books or doing a ton of them, because they're print on demand. So you send the file over and they don't print it until somebody orders it. And then you can order them at a discount and take them with you to conventions. You know, when we were going in person to do book signings, like that's where you end up with extra books that are yours. Or if you're doing like giveaways or raffles or things like that. But otherwise, people buy on demand when they want it. They print it on demand.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I don't understand. Actually, I don't understand why that's not the standard. Because seriously, the technology is so fast now. You can just go, whoop, here it is. Yeah. It looks great. Yeah. All right. That's a little less scary for me. I had another question. Now I can't remember what it was. So. Another abject terror. Oh, I know what it was. Yeah, I don't want to be that person at the convention who's sitting in the dealer's room trying to sell their books. Please don't tell me I have to do that, because I can't do that. That's awful.
Yeah.
Like, I always walk past those people, like, putting my hand over my face, just like, dude, I don't want to look at you, oh God. This is so awkward.
I thought I would love book signings, and I hated them. And that's because the introvert in me was terrified of that, of what you're describing, of being at a table with like a stack of books. Nobody knows me. Nobody knows my name. Like a few people come over, but like I just found it so agonizing and I stopped doing it because it wasn't necessarily enough to, like, if I enjoyed it and just enjoyed talking to people, then I would say like, do it. Like, regardless of whether you sell it, like you're enjoying the time and the space. So like, that's great. But if it makes you break out in hives, then don't do it. It's okay. There's like plenty of other ways that people can find your books. And there's some people who are like, total hermits and recluses and like they never come out. They never do public appearances. And the reality is the same thing can happen if you're traditionally published. Like if people don't know you, like very few authors are like household names that people know and go out to meet.
Yeah, because I mean, like when I think about if I bought a book, it's usually not because the author told me to, like it's because it's sort of come up, obviously word of mouth. Everyone loves word of mouth.
Yeah, so
it's just intimidating. Like I don't know, but I think part of me wants to just like try, because like I have all these books sitting around that I've written because I'm such a chicken. Like what if I just took one and tried to indie publish it and see what happened? And, what would that be? Try it out. What's the worst that could happen? It's no worse than it's happening now, where it's just sitting in my computer doing nothing.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think? Worth a shot?
I mean, that's how I did my first novel. Like, I wrote it while we were in school over, like, the holiday break. I actually think I wrote it in NaNoWriMo. And then I spent, like, a month and a half going through the editing process. And I was just like, I'm in school, so I'm learning. And I considered it just like if you go to film school and they're like, oh, you're going to make your own student film. I was like, I'm going to make my own book. Like, I'm going to figure this out.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think if you set your expectation, like, this is just about me learning and figuring out if I like this and, getting some of my work out there so that people can read it, even if it's only my immediate circle, that's totally acceptable as this is how I'm going to define success for this project. And I think that it can get really intimidating because I remember there was a time when everybody's like, you have to publish 6 books and it's got to be within a 3-month period. So you've got to write all of this stuff and then release it strategically. So the algorithms will bounce you into the top 100 of Amazon. And you don't have to take that kind of crazy kamikaze approach.
Yeah. I'm not trying to pay the bills here. This is just a thing.
Yeah.
That to kind of get me started. I'm getting my feet wet. Of course, the other fear that's come up now, as I'm thinking of that, is worse than if people don't read it, is what if they do?
This is the life of writers, right? I don't want you. Yeah. I want you to read it. I want you to read it, but I don't really want you to read it because I don't want to know what you think about it.
Well, unless you love it, in which case then you can tell me. But of course, if I know that if you don't tell me, that means you don't love it. And so you know what? We'll just skip the whole thing. Yeah, no, it's good times. Oh, boy. I think, though, to remember that, let's say the worst that could happen is they go, oh, that's not that good. But then, if there's another book, they're not going to go, oh, my God, there's that idiot. They're probably not even going to remember me because, they're not going to care. And then, maybe they'll try it again because if there was something they tried once, maybe they'll try it again and I'll have gotten better and it'll be better, right?
Yeah.
Does that sound like a pretty good justification?
I think that's the right way to look at it.
I like that very much.
And nobody, you don't hit a home run on your first time. That's so rare, right?
Yeah.
It's just put it out there, allow people to read it and enjoy it. Some people are going to really love it, and that's going to carry you over the rest of the feedback.
I think that would be amazing if someone I didn't know read my book and was like, I loved it. I think I would just die happy. That would be amazing, right?
Yep.
But the only way that's going to happen is if I get it so that someone I don't know can actually read the book.
And they can't read it on your computer.
Or if they do, we have other problems.
Right. Hey, Mary, I read that book.
Can you imagine someone's... You're amazing. Wait, did you hack my computer? But you liked it, right? Yeah, I did. Oh, okay, well, I won't arrest you. I won't turn you into the cops because you liked it. What did you like about it? Well, you've inspired me, Melissa. I think we should talk more about this in the future to kind of, because this is a big thing I think a lot of people deal with, not just, my uptight self,
So
but
common.
yeah, it's a common thing. So you're being a good voice of reason and comfort. So thank you.
Yay.
Well, I think we've had a good breakthrough. I think that's the end of our session. We are on social media and stuff. Please leave a review if you can on Apple Podcasts, and otherwise, I guess we'll just wrap it and see you next time, yeah?
Yeah.
All right. So, remember, writing is hard.
So take it easy.
I'm Mary.
And I'm Melissa.
Bye.
Bye.